Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Living Mythology, I'm proud to bring you the Pep Talk, a legacy show with John Carl Pepe. Greetings, John.
Greetings, Hercules. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good, very good. Enjoyed our interview. You, myself, Paul Dale Roberts interviewing Rick Offenberger. Really fantastic interview last night. So if folks are watching this and haven't checked that out, that's on this channel as well. But tonight we're going to be doing the pep talk for August. And basically, this is part of, I guess, our summer movie special series because last week or last month we did the Jaws 50th anniversary retrospective, and so returning from that episode back for a little bit more abuse is the great AJ Duffy, film aficionado, all around good guy, and works for the government, but that's okay. He's a letter carrier, so we like him for that. He's one of the people in your neighborhood. AJ Duffy, ladies and gentlemen, I give you AJ Duffy.
All right. I have a problem here because my writer clearly stated M&Ms and peach schnapps. I don't have either. Who do we talk to?
You know what? We'll get on that for the next time.
Okay. Amateur.
Amateur, it is amateur hour. Fake talk show. What do you expect? What do you expect? Also returning, very happy to have him come back. He was with us back in June, as we talked about his time working on the Superman comics and really kind of helped get us jazzed up for the Superman movie that we were all awaiting on that impending release. So I bring back also the one and only, the great writer, editor, web designer, apparently at one point put perfume in bottles on an assembly line. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Palmer Jr.
I still have nightmares about that.
And finally, we have a first timer here. We have a gentleman who I have long admired his work. He is a stand-up comedian. He is co-host of the SNL Nerds podcast. He is a wonderful journalist, especially in the comics game, writes frequently for the wonderful, great Back Issue magazine. Does have an article in this issue, but not the cover feature. But I felt that was appropriate since I couldn't find the issue that I did want to display, which we'll maybe talk about a little bit. But I am so honored and happy to have with us tonight, John Trumbull.
Thank you for having me, John. Nice to be here.
Great to have you, man. So yeah, basically this is going to be super fantastic summer. So we're going to kind of talk about the two big movies that happened this summer, and we're going to kind of give our notes on them. But before we do kick that off, I do want to kind of give the floor to you, John, a little bit, since you've never been on the show before. I just kind of want to have
no
you
pressure.
give you a little bit, little log line of your origin and how you got into journalism and comedy and SNL Nerds podcasting and all the other things that you do. But before we do that, I really just have to do a little bit of an honorifics here, something we used to do on the older show a little more frequently. Whenever there's a passing that is really, we really feel it needs to be acknowledged, we do like to acknowledge him. And last week was a doozy. So again, Malcolm, Ozzy, Terry, Chuck, right? That's me with Chuck Mangione, 1978. I was 3 years old. It's my first concert, Central Park. And Chuck was a good friend of my dad's. My dad was Phil Pepe, the sports writer, for those who don't know. And he also loved jazz as much as baseball. And yeah, him and Chuck were really good friends. So I got to see Chuck a lot growing up, which is really, really cool, really fun. But also personally, I just kind of want to give a quick shout out to my brother's mother-in-law, Marion DeLappy. She was a wonderful woman. We lost her last week. She just came this close to being 92, but she was a very warm and wonderful person. And so, my heart goes out to that extended part of our family. And part of the Pep Talk family, friend of the show, Stuart Hirsch, friend in life, Stuart Hirsch, sadly lost someone very close to him recently. And if you know Stuart, you know what he's going through. So I just, on behalf of everyone here at the Pep Talk, Stuart, our hearts are with you, and we love you, and stay strong. All right. Enough of my yakking. So super fantastic summer. But first, I just want to have John Trumbull kind of explain himself a little bit to give us.
Oh, you did a great job, honestly. I mean, I could give it a little more context, but I'd be afraid I'd just bored your audience.
They're bored already. We're all bored
Okay.
already.
I
So.
mean, short version, I started reading comics when I was about 6. I still remember my first issue, Batman 303. Batman gets knocked on the head, starts thinking that Bruce Wayne is a crime fighter and Batman is a secret identity. And I was hooked for life after that. And how did I get into writing for back issue? I wrote Michael Urey out of the blue one day on Facebook. I asked if he'd ever thought of doing an article about the backup feature Nemesis from Brave and the Bold from the early 80s, which I was a big fan of. And I basically wanted to see it covered in the magazine. And I had good timing because he was planning a issue on backup features then. So he gave me a shot, didn't know me from Adam. And I'll always be grateful to Michael for that. Did that and was lucky enough to continue on from there. So.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. One of the great things, if you're not familiar with Back Issue Magazine, it does focus on silver, but mainly Bronze Age comics, late 60s, 70s, 80s. And then, of course, just like the sliding timescale in Marvel continuity, we kind of extend the bounds now into the 90s, and I think we're starting to dip the toes into the early 2000s a little bit now with
comics Bronze Age and beyond is the
Bronze Age
tagline.
and beyond, yeah. And it's just wonderful deep dives, incredible interviews, just a great insight. One of the hallmarks, I think, of your time with Back Issue, I think you would probably agree, is the opportunity to interview James Robinson and Tony Harris for that wonderful article where you kind of, we're not gonna say anything, but you kind of scooped the scoopers before the scoop was even a scoop, I think, with that
article. Well, that's a neat way to put it. Yeah. Well, I asked about what was at the time an untold story. It's still an untold story. It's a story they talked about back in the day in interviews where Jack Knight goes to Japan and has an adventure there. And I asked them about that, and they were very forthcoming with the details. And they were both basically like, "Yeah, we'd do it in a heartbeat if DC gave us the opportunity." And since then, it looks like that project is coming together. They're working on something. Nothing's been officially announced. So, although there are, I think, a few sites that have maybe jump the gun on that a bit, as some sites are wont to do.
Yeah.
But like last year at Baltimore, I saw Tony Harris face to face, and I asked him point blank. I said, "Do you think my interview with you guys a couple of years ago moved the needle on this at all?" And he was like, "No." so don't give me more credit than I deserve there.
No. But the interview is wonderful. It does give a lot of really good insight, and I think it was the first time they had sort of come together and talked about it in the same forum in some time. So I thought that was really good, but yeah, it's always nice to know that there's something new on the horizon, and that was one of the great things I think about this summer. I think we can all agree that we had two icons, really, comic icons, and in some cases film icon, returning to the screen in much anticipated reboots and reinterpretations. So that's what we're going to kind of move into and start talking. So we're going to kind of go around the line here and get some thoughts. I personally do feel that it is very cool that it was a Superman movie kicking off a sort of new cinematic attempt at that world. And that, because Superman, of course, famously the first big superhero, not necessarily the first costume superhero or costume crime fighter, but the one that really put that on the map, and going toe to toe with Marvel's first family, right? Considering that the technically Fantastic Four #1 in 1961 was the first Marvel comic, not to be confused with Timely Comics, Marvel Comics #1, which all got folded into the Marvel universe. So I thought it was really neat. And I think it was kind of neat how one movie certainly leaned into that a little bit as far as giving some homages and references to the other, which maybe we'll get into it a little bit. But I think it was just really, really good because I think for a lot of people, this was for Marvel Studios a last ditch effort, a hope at a restart before an eventual reboot, but building the culmination towards the end of this 20 some odd year run of movies. A very impressive world. But yes, that's looking ahead. But here's the thing. We're gonna get on to talking about some movies here. So I want to go first with to AJ, and I want to kind of, as somebody who loves movies, and I know you saw Superman in 3D. I know you love 3D movies. I think we each saw it on a different format, which is kind of interesting. But I kind of want to know your thoughts as not necessarily a comic book fan, AJ, but as a movie goer, being able to go and see a new Superman movie and see a new Fantastic Four movie. Give me your thoughts on both, and we'll kind of get the conversation going.
All right. As far as which format you saw it on, we'll talk about that at a later time.
Well, as a fake talk show host, I do have fake access to at-home privileges.
Okay. Whatever. But honestly, listen, both of them, I think, killed it. Both franchises needed that this year. They were both going downhill. I mean, you can't deny that. They were both going downhill. I think this might have saved both of them. Superman was what America needs right now. I mean, it's just a feel-good movie. Fantastic Four, a lot of deep cuts, a little heavier, also a little lighter. I mean, it's ridiculous to watch them fight Galactus in the middle of New York City, especially I don't want to give spoilers.
I think if we have to dip into spoilers, I think it's fine. I think by the time this, people see this, enough have seen everything. Yeah.
Honestly, IMAX, the way to see it.
Right on.
Phenomenal. The Galactus battle at the end on the big screen, as cheesy as it may be, as great as it may be, you need to see it on that big screen. Again, we'll talk about formats another time. I had problems with both of them. Not many, though. It was just feel-good movies. It was something you need for summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Years from now, it's not going to beat Christopher Reeves. Fantastic Four is definitely going to beat every previous version. That goes without saying. But no, it was just a good time. And that's what people need right now.
So you feel both movies pretty much succeeded in what you were expecting as far as going to a movie for a big event and just getting lost in the movie and having fun.
Absolutely. I mean, both movies I saw, people actually applauded. It's been a long time since I have seen people applaud during a movie. Fantastic Four especially. People were going nuts. People standing up and cheering. And I was like, I haven't seen this in forever. It was just a good feeling to see it with an audience and see how they responded to it and how happy they were. I think they did the job. And like I said, Marvel needed it. DC needed it. It's a great way to kick off whatever DC is going to do. And it was a great way to bring people back to Marvel with how much people have disliked Marvel lately. So I think they did the job.
Nice. And Superman, you saw the 3D, and how did that compare with other 3D movies? 'Cause I remember we saw Deadpool Wolverine, and I thought that was great at 3D. I don't know if that movie was intended to be 3D, but that opening credit scene absolutely felt like it was intended for 3D.
Marvel tends to do a better job with 3D than DC does. This one, like I said, I saw it in IMAX 3D, so it was phenomenal. Superman was good. There wasn't anything that stood out to me as being particularly great. I just enjoyed the movie. I kind of actually forgot that I was seeing it in 3D when I watched it. So, but Fantastic Four, I was aware of it at certain points in the movie. But usually that stuff looks better in home video. So.
I don't say it looks better. It's just it's a means to an end sometimes.
The 3D looks better.
Oh, 3D. Oh, you're saying 3D looks
Obviously,
better at home video.
don't
Yeah.
have a 3D setup. If you
Right.
get,
You said that. Yeah.
it looks much better than it does in theaters usually. It's very
Yeah.
rare that I'm blown away by 3D in a theater.
Interesting. Because I always feel sometimes part of that visceral experience with the 3D is like that deep resonating sound too. I'm sure you have a pretty good sound system, but I guess yeah, I could see that there's something to be said about that smaller plane on a home flat screen to really so you could really focus your eyes and kind of get
Yeah.
yeah.
As far as sound goes, if I had to pick a winner, Fantastic Four wins it sound wise. But again, I saw it in IMAX. I didn't see Superman in IMAX.
Right. Cool. Cool. I do want to get into, among all of us, I want to kind of get into some of the expectations going into both of these films, some of the controversies surrounding it. But I still want to get a sense from Tom, your thoughts on both of these movies. Because as we talked about back in June, you were a caretaker for a while for Superman, right? In the comic books, and you were a Marvel kid. And I know that with John Byrne in general being a steady part of your comics diet growing up, I'm sure you were all in on that run from John Byrne.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So yeah, let it rip. What'd you think?
I was surprised that I enjoyed both of them. I didn't think I was going to. I thought it was going to be like a clear like one would be better than the other. But they're two different flavors of superhero movies, and they're both good. Which was a nice surprise for me, just to be able to enjoy both of them. I really appreciated all the Kirby stuff and Fantastic Four. The call outs to him and just the designs and stuff, and even just the call outs to like 60s movies, the Fantastic Voyage and Kubrick stuff. That was just kind of neat to see all that stuff. I wasn't expecting that. And Superman, was really, I was surprised that they went so comic heavy on things. It definitely felt like a comic book movie more than any recent DC movie, especially like the Snyder stuff, the Snyder stuff, he leans so heavily into the whole, like, these are gods and that whole take. It was nice to go back to like a real comic book approach to the character, without being kind of campy as the original movies were. The Donner movie, the first one was great, still had a little bit of the slight camp to it, and then as each one of those original four, they just got a little more ridiculous and silly. So this is like a nice balance to be like comic booky, but not, not a movie studio's interpretation of what comic booky is. That was I really appreciated that part of it. And I saw both in the theater, so I want to get that in there.
You saw Superman in IMAX, correct?
IMAX, yeah. And
you were like the
FF
first
IMAX.
one, right? You did that 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock showing. Yeah, it was a Father's Day gift. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
And how'd you see Fantastic Four? Regular?
Yeah.
IMAX?
Yeah, IMAX, yeah.
Nice.
We were a little bit closer to that one, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was a little like, like this with Galactus, it's kind of neat. So I kind of get added to the effect.
So he knows.
Yeah.
So there was a you made a good point about the Jack Kirby nods and homages. Saw somebody comment that it was really very much Jack's version of the Fantastic Four more than Stan's, even just in characterization, which I thought was a neat way to go. It's always good to see Jack get his due. There apparently is a cameo, I guess, of a comic book writer and artist. That I missed it, but I
missed
heard
it.
about this.
Yeah. I forget. There's like something going on in New York City, obviously, and it pans to an office. Like an office window, and you see.
Oh yeah.
These two guys sitting one at a desk and a drawing table, and the other guy standing over him, and they look out the window, and
I remember that.
Yeah.
Smiled for that.
Tom, how did it feel to see some plot elements of things that you've worked on in the Superman title show up in that movie.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty neat. Yeah. Like the birthright stuff and
Yeah, like
yeah.
the Kryptonian message, I think
Right.
is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much, I think, pulled from that. Yeah, it was kind of neat that you could definitely tell where James Gunn's comic book tastes lay. And it was very much in that post-crisis through like early 2000s run, you know, so definitely like a Triangle era kid, it seemed like, with his digestion of comics. So I thought
And
that
really
was
like
neat.
amazing that he's gotten people to like, just to, not that anyone wouldn't care about him, but to like to the general public to be like, who's Mr. Terrific, and like they want to know more about him, and they're like kind of like rabid for him. That was great. Like just to be able to accomplish that, and like it kind of shows like that, like you said, like he's a fan and he knows his stuff, and you know it's he's got a talent to be able to get that stuff across, kind of like he did with Guardian, where it's like, you know, he took these characters that were kind of third tier, fourth tier, and made them stars, you know.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you know, yeah, I think that was one of the strengths was the introducing new characters, you know. So Superman, you definitely didn't have to do all the heavy lifting, right? That you could build this world out from that. And which is funny because for Fantastic Four, I love that there was also some great world building. My concern was how it was going to connect to the greater MCU, and I'm glad that they didn't, so that as much world building it was done on that, what, the 838 they're calling it, August 1930. It's Kirby's
I think it was
birthday.
828.
828.
Yeah.
August 28th.
August 28th. So yeah, it's Kirby's birthday, right? So so I appreciated that it was self-contained, but yet there was a lot of world building going on. It was definitely, Superman was definitely very much a James Gunn film, I think, first and foremost. And one of the things I noticed was there were definitely similar arcs in both movies that we'll hopefully get to in a little bit. But there was definitely a little bit of the Kryptonian stuff that I found was reflective of Star-Lord's arc from the Guardians, with Ego, you know, having a different thing set out for him than he wanted to do, and how it was his connections to Yondu and, you know, my real father kind of stuff.
Yeah, who's my family, who's my parents. Yeah.
So I like that. I like when a filmmaker does have a through line and a thread, and I think that it worked really well in Superman because I do like this period of Superman that they use. This we're 3 years in, there's a confidence, but there's not a super confidence, right? And so that whole idea that, you know, and even as he has in that speech at the end, you know, that every day he tries to do the right thing, but he does make mistakes. And I think that more relatable Superman, like AJ said, was something that we needed now. Someone, you know, that it's important for kindness and looking out for others to sort of supersede a needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, sort of thing.
And you have to save the squirrels
and
too.
You got to save the squirrels. It's important. Look, it's again, you know, this movie was also an homage to a whole bunch of other Superman movies. As I was watching, I felt like this is the sequel Christopher Reeve deserved, right? And so the first Superman movie has that, literally the save the cat moment, you know, in movies, right? If you know that term, you know that you know. And so yeah, how do you homage the save the cat? You save the squirrel. It's just another level of that. Just sort of how Ultraman was a riff on Nuclear Man, just how Lex Luthor still needs to grab land, you know, like those things that were kind of have become Superman lore, which is something I always love, that other media can inform, you know, the source material as well, the comics as, you know, as well. Those things from the Donner movie are now just such a part of Superman's mythology, sort of like the crystalline fortress of solitude, right? That is now a through line through several interpretations of Superman in other media. So we'll kind of maybe come back to some of that stuff. John, I want to get your thoughts on Super Fantastic Summer and what you thought about the two movies. And as somebody, you know, as a comic fan who knows his stuff, how'd you feel they measured up?
Well, I did see both of the movies. I saw them both at my local drive-in.
Love
I'm
it.
out like
Oh, how cool.
I'm out in the boonies and
Nice.
the Hudson Valley, and the drive-in is literally like the closest theater to me. It's only about 10 minutes away from me. So it's a fun way to see movies during the summer. Saw them both, liked them both. I could quibble with both of them, but they would just be that. I mean, I would say I enjoyed Superman more. That's the one I was looking forward to more from the trailers and all that. Oh, the FF movie, I wasn't as excited about that, partly because I wasn't thrilled with the casting initially. I thought all the actors did a good job. I think they could have had like maybe a little more chemistry together. Um, but it was very well done, and I liked them both. Yeah, and they both made some deep dives into comic book lore, or even like movie trivia lore. Like one of Luther's henchmen in the Superman movie was named Otis Berg, which is that is some deep cut geekery there, and my hat's off to James Gunn for that.
I love that with Marvel, it seems right now we're in the age of the live action cover homage. So Deadpool Wolverine did a couple cover homages.
Oh yeah.
This did the FF #1 cover homage, and as I alluded to earlier, homage Action Comics #1 with the Thing showing off in front of the kids with the yellow old timey car, lifting it up very much in like the action pose, right, for Action #1. Of course, they want him to smash it, but he doesn't smash it, right? But so I thought that was neat. And then there was the other shot from that opening montage on the fake Ed Sullivan show montage. After he cannonballs into the water and then he comes out and he's pulling the ship on the chain, is literally a mirrored shot from Batman Hates Superman when they have Cavill Superman lugging that ship with the chain. So I feel like Matt Shakman, the director, I feel like these were definitely knowing that this movie was going to be going up against Superman, I feel like he wanted to slip those in there as sort of a director's awareness. I like to think that. I don't know if that's a truth or not, but it's something that caught my eye. I thought was interesting. So there was a lot of controversy going into both of these movies. Speaking of the previous Superman, Henry Cavill. And I just kind of want to get a feel of kind of your guys' thoughts as far as was this a manufacturer controversy, or are there people that just heels dug into the previous regime of DC movies that, or at least Cavill, that this really was a thing? So I can get back to AJ. AJ, did you have any awareness of what was going on with these the Snyder Knights versus the gun boys, or whatever they call them?
Yeah, of course. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a Cavill guy. All right, Corn Sweat did a great job. Corn Set? How do you say his name?
Corn Sweat. Yeah.
Corn Sweat. Okay. Did a great job. Liked him. I'm still a Cavill guy. It didn't stop me from enjoying the movie in any way. I know a lot of people are boycotting the movie because they just want to see Cavill. I'm not that guy. Times change. You got to move on. This character's eternal. You're always going to have new people down the line. You got to get used to that. So as far as that goes, no, I'm fine. I'm moving on. This guy's good. I don't know if he's great yet. We'll see as time goes on. But no, I was a Cavill guy. I'm sad to see him go, but I'm not boycotting a movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's Superman. How many people have played Superman at this point? It's an eternal character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are Batman. I'm still a Ben Affleck guy. I like Affleck as Batman. But you know what? I've liked a lot of people as Batman. You got to move on.
Yeah, it's true. Everybody brings their own flavor to the interpretation of the character, and that's what it is. It's an interpretation, but it's also not one guy. It's also, again, the writing, directing beyond that. And yeah, I thought Cavill was a great choice for casting. Like the four of us, he's a Jersey guy. Of course, not New Jersey, but you know, so he you know, and I thought he was really good. There were definitely, I don't think that this would have suited his style for Superman. I don't think that this material would have worked for him.
His Superman was too serious. This Superman, we have the corn-fed, aw shucks, you know, Kansas boy that goes through, especially like the cutscene, the end credit scenes. You see how silly he is. You know, he's still that Kansas kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to say anything against Kansas, but you know what we know from comics, he's the aw shucks kid. You know, everything is still, he's still innocent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Cavill was a little more hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I'm a Batman guy, so I like that. But for Superman, this worked better.
Well, now apparently the rumor or wishes of the collective internet is because again, anybody, you know, James Gunn says something and people have to like run with it. So he had said at some point he would love to have Cavill play some significant role in this new move, you know, DC universe, just like you know, Jason Momoa is coming back as Lobo, right? So now it's there's a lot of people who want to see Henry Cavill as Batman, which I think would break the general public's brain. I think that would hurt people who don't pay attention to this stuff. It would, you know, there were people who were I guess seeing trailers for this Superman movie and coming out and saying, I really want to see it because I want to see how it links up to what to Man of Steel. People thinking this was a prequel to Man of Steel. So that was, you know, that was definitely something that was out there among the general public. They didn't know, they didn't care what was going on behind the scenes. They just saw a Superman and they were like, why is it not the guy that we last saw as Superman? You know, Tom, do you think there was any, do you think this is all Russian bots just hating on Warner Brothers? Or do you think there was actually some people who really, really have their heart set on the Snyderverse coming back?
Or what about Dean Cain? Right? I mean,
Oh, you mean Dean Tanaka?
yeah.
Right
Yeah,
here,
you know,
right
some of the
here.
stuff, I
Dean
think some
Cain
of the
and Lou
stuff is,
Ferrigno.
you know, it's,
Oh, did they both sign that?
I had them both sign that at Chiller a bunch of
Oh,
years
that's
ago.
cute.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you know,
you-
there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? Like, so,
yeah. Well, so
yeah.
okay, you know, I was wondering if we were going to get through this without mentioning Dean, and I have some thoughts. So I have met Dean. He is, I will say, whatever your political leanings, Dean Cain is the nicest guy at a convention. If you ever see he's at a show, you go and you see him. He was Superman, and he was a darn good Superman for the material that he was working with on television in the early 90s, right? So good on him for that. Yeah, there was no distinction between his Clark Kent and Superman, except for Clark Kent had the mussy hair and Superman had the slicked hair. But that was the George Reeves kind of thing, man. It was the new adventures of Superman. And so yeah, so you ever get a chance to meet Dean Cain, nicest guy, you know, don't talk politics with him. I feel bad. I feel bad for Dean Cain because as the only outspoken right-wing actor who's played Superman, anytime there's any sort of controversy, real or manufactured, they trot him out to be the talking head and to say the things, and then it just, like you said, it gets him out there, it gets him some airtime, and I wish it was he didn't have to do that. And it was really kind of obvious because one of the things he did say, he goes, look, Peter Safran went to Harvard with me like a year earlier. He hasn't called me yet for work. Right. So he's literally turning these into pleas for work. And, you know, but whatever, fine. You know, he gets to have his say. I do love the beauty of the internet that, you know, that the second he said that all these clips from Lois and Clark showed up,
With woke Superman, right?
Yeah, well, or like, yeah, like Superman getting approached by the IRS for not filing taxes, and the INS for not having a green card.
Right.
There's an episode where a guy from the past is running for president, and he does this whole thing. He's a time traveler. He does a whole, make America great again type campaign, and it's Lois and Clark watching, and Clark basically being like, America's already great. What does he mean, make America great again? So I kind of love that the internet will bite back
Mhm.
like that. But yeah, so I mean, and that, yeah, Superman is an immigrant story. You can't get around that. And especially, when you were the first real ethnic Superman too, I mean, that's sort of I'd be wearing that as a badge of honor if I was Dean Cain, but it is what it is. That digression notwithstanding, setting aside, do you feel that that there is that this is just a few just really loud, is this a loud minority of people who want the Snyderverse back, or do you think it's it's a bit louder than it is, or
Uh,
larger than it is than it is?
yeah, I think it's probably just a minority. It's just kind of, it doesn't really, I don't know. Obviously, it hasn't affected the movie because it's doing pretty good. So, they probably
Adjusted
just,
for inflation, it still hasn't quite beat Man of Steel yet.
all right. It's not
Yeah,
done yet.
that's the overseas stuff.
That's true. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Which,
worldwide, it's not doing great because of the anti-America sentiment. But
yeah, which
Which-
is interesting because, again, poor James Gunn, you open your mouth to say something to defend your movie, and then people jump all over that too.
Yeah.
But so what do you think overall? Do you think that, I mean, I think they've already announced he's working on writing the script for the sequel. He is, and of course there's the other stuff that's already in the pipe and finished, like Peacemaker season 2. Supergirl is going to be the next summer's movie. And I guess it looks like this is on track to make money. Do you think this is a $1 billion movie though?
No,
No.
no, I don't think this and Fantastic Four I don't think they're designed for that. They're not.
Hmm.
FF is, the first Marvel comic, yeah, but it was never the X-Men. It was never Spider-Man. You
Mhm.
know, they're always a solid series, but it was never, you know, uh, their top seller. Maybe at the beginning, maybe early on, but like, when I was a kid, it was X-Men, Spider-Man.
Right, right. Oh yeah, I mean, and that kind of shows with the previous attempts at doing the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
Um, and and I am kind of partial to the Roger Corman one, just because it is so much like a comic book. As cheesy as and bad as it is, there's a charm about it that I really really enjoy. And I couldn't even make it past, I think, the introduction of the guy who does become Victor Von Doom in the Fan Four stick. I couldn't even make it like 10 minutes past that in that movie. Um, but you did bring up a good point. I kind of want to kick this over to John, because I know you kind of keep a lot of track on certain things like this. Uh, so Tom made a point that, yeah, these movies right now aren't really designed to make $1 billion at the box office. It'd be nice if they do, but it seems like the game has changed, that streaming is now where they're looking to break that threshold, right? To add on top of the 600, 700 million at the box office with a couple 300 million in streaming revenue. Am I correct in that thought, or is there...
I honestly don't know. I'm probably a bad person to talk to about the economics of these, because I honestly I don't tend to care too much about like what a movie earns or all that, because I'm not an investor in these things. I
Right,
have no horse in this race. I care if the movie's good.
right.
Like James Gunn's The Suicide Squad movie. I think that sort of underperformed at the box office, or didn't do as well as it was projected to. But I thought it was a wonderful movie, and I loved it, and I saw it like 3 times.
Mhm.
So that to me is what I care about. I mean, I think the important thing for this Superman movie is that it gave this new DC Studios cinematic universe, whatever they're calling it, um, a new foundation to work from. And I think Superman's like the hub of the wheel of the DC universe. If you get him wrong, you're kind of building a house on a faulty foundation. And although, like Man of Steel, some things about that movie I like quite a bit, but other things I thought they got egregiously wrong. Like,
Oh, that movie was neck-snappingly good.
Yeah. I mean, I just think if you're trying to tell that sort of story with Superman, it's not really a Superman story. So yeah, so I felt like they were getting off to a bad start in that. But I thought Henry Cavill was very good in the role. I thought he was usually better than the material he was given. Some of the casting of the DCEU I like quite a bit. I mean, even Ben Affleck, who I had doubts about at first, he really impressed me with the role. I had quibbles about how they were writing the role, but I thought he did wonderfully with what he was given.
Yeah, I think that overall that was, I would say, my complaint about what Zack Snyder was doing. This is a guy who, in interviews has basically displayed a fundamental misunderstanding of one specific scene from Dark Knight Returns that he emulates in the Batman vs Superman movie. Where he, in his mind, and he read the comic when he was 13 and it probably stuck with him and never went back to reread it, right? So he that Batman actually does actively kill in that, and especially in that scene. And he was definitely, he's a great visual filmmaker. There's no doubt about that. He's not that good of a storyteller, I find. And I think, the story he was trying to tell, and knowing what we know now with Man of Steel, it wasn't supposed to be Batman vs Superman. It was supposed to be Man of Steel 2, but there was sort of a little shaky feet that they kind of wanted to rush this with. That's why, we got so much in that Batman versus Superman, including the death of Superman, which should have been a much bigger beat in a later movie. And it looked like he was trying to just kind of get through a bunch of stuff. It was getting a lot of pressure from the studio as well. And so I think initial plans were scuttled for other things that he was planning for later. And then, of course, the tragedy hit him. And then we got, what we got. And I will say, that 4-hour Justice League cut of his with, again, you didn't need the Martian Manhunter stuff to be thrown into there, especially that scene with Martha and Lois, which is such a really good scene. Because it's revealed it's the Martian Manhunter in that. I don't know if everyone remembers this, but because it's revealed, like, I want to see that scene later where Lois is like, "Oh, thanks for that great conversation we had," and Martha's like, "What are you talking about? I don't remember that." And then now they think that Martha has dementia, they got to like put her away or something because of the Martian Manhunter, posing at her. But yeah, it was, I pay attention to the box office stuff, John, because if I like something, I want to have a little reassurance that we're going to get some more of it.
Oh yeah, that's the extent that I care about. Right? I mean, I want a movie to do well enough that if I like it, we're going to get more. So yeah.
And
my theory on how they got from Man of Steel to Batman v Superman is, I feel like when they started making Man of Steel, they were just kind of doing it with that old cinematic model where each superhero is kind of in their own little world, and there wasn't any thought to building the universe. And then, like, in Man of Steel came out in like 2013, right? Do I have that right?
Yep.
So I feel like Avengers hit maybe sometime when they were in pre-production, and they were like, "Oh crap, Marvel's making a cinematic universe. We gotta step our game up." And I feel like they sort of, that's what they were trying to do in Batman v Superman, is like they're trying to suddenly get to a JLA movie without maybe putting in all the groundwork that Marvel had over the course of several years. They're just trying to skip ahead like several steps. I have no inside knowledge on this. This is just my feeling. This is just me like picking up context clues, but it makes sense to me.
Oh, that definitely tracks. That definitely tracks with what was going on and when things were announced. It was like a good. It was really on the heels of the Avengers that they even started announcing the Batman versus Superman. It was very short after Man
Mhm.
of Steel, but first there was Man of Steel. We're talking about Man of Steel Man of Steel 2, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, we're doing Batman versus Superman because Avengers was
Yeah.
really big. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember they announced it at like San Diego, whatever year that was, probably 2014, I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
You also have in there
Uh,
when Disney bought Marvel, also, so that was competition for Warner Brothers. You know,
Yeah.
they're feeling the heat because
Mhm.
Disney bought Marvel in between from Iron Man and Avengers. I forget what movie was coming out when they bought
Yeah,
them, but
that's an excellent point.
you know,
Yep. Yeah. And, Warner Brothers has just been through so many shakeups and, mergers and sell-offs and things like that. And I think there's still some more stuff that's going to be happening. But they were putting all in on this Superman movie. They really needed a win with this one,
Mhm.
because I think that if this did not do any sort of a 100+ year film studio may have gone away, which would have been crazy to think about.
and also you can't forget that Superman's gone in public domain in 10 years, right? So you kind of have you need a 10-year
Yeah.
plan to get this out there, and
Yep.
play with these toys before everyone else can get their own chance at it.
Well, and now again, the way that this kind of works is, the public domain, it's that Action Comics #1 version of Superman, right? And
Right.
then whatever, like the next year, it'll be like whatever appeared from in Superman #1 and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So it's
Like
sort of
each element one by
Yeah,
one.
it's gonna
Yeah.
yeah.
jumping, not flying, no
Yeah.
legs, none of
You
that.
can't use Jimmy Olsen yet. You can't
Right.
have the Daily Planet yet because those came in later. Yeah.
Which is
But
interesting because
conceivably, could Marvel put a Superman character in their movies, just have him jumping around in a Superman costume,
So now is
Or-
this sort of three-dimensional chess, because you're getting a Marvel guy to make chart the course of the DC universe, and he is still very close with Kevin Feige. And does this sort of open the door? Look, they're doing it in the comics again after 20 years of
Yeah.
saying they wouldn't do it. Does this
Mhm.
open the door to a live action Marvel DC something?
If they can figure that out, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff that has to line up for that to happen. But it would be really neat, and it would be one of the few ways they could really top themselves after Avengers Endgame and all that.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors that they're talking about this behind the scenes, but it's just going to come down to money. I don't think we're ever going to see that.
Yeah, but you're leaving money on the table by not doing it, I think.
Yeah, look at what a hard time they're having right now incorporating Hulk into Marvel. Do you really think Universal, right? They can't make a Hulk movie. Do you really think that DC and Marvel, Warner Brothers and Disney are gonna work that out?
That Universal one is so weird because it's just the distribution rights that they have. Like Universal can't make a Hulk movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Only Marvel.
Isn't
can
that
make-
over now?
Oh, that's a good-
I thought that had expired by this
Oh,
point.
interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Not that I've heard. I think that's still a thing. I think that's still why they can't make a Hulk movie. They can
Oh, okay.
movie,
Yeah.
but they can't make a Hulk movie without paying Universal.
I know that was the case for a long time. I was under the impression that that was not the case any longer. But I think at this point, it's been so long since they've made a Hulk movie. I don't know if there's much of an audience clamoring for it.
No,
That's true. Yeah. They'd have to do some serious, and they could do it with a Hulk movie, but some serious fixing, I think, to the Hulk. Where look, I think the Professor Hulk bit was funny, but I think it's not the Hulk that people really want, and I think that was a course correct that Marvel definitely needs to make. I think that's definitely how fans feel. And again, I think that this Fantastic Four movie is a good step towards his first steps. Interesting, towards course correct on what has really been perceived as lackluster over output since Endgame.
Yeah.
I always used to say trust Kevin Feige, and he knows what he's doing, but I think it just got too big. It got too big for one guy, and I think it's good to see that he's sort of taken the reins. And I think it's interesting though that he's already sort of planting the seeds for a possible reboot after the Secret Wars movies. Tom, do you think that that's where this might be headed?
Yeah, I mean, I think I read some interview or whatever. It sounds like they don't want to call it a reboot. They want to say it's a reset. So you can kind of get away with the idea of recasting everyone and starting over.
Yeah.
You get a younger Iron Man and you get a younger Captain America. You get the
Mhm.
X-Men as teenagers, as they were in the comics.
Now,
Um,
I can see redoing the X-Men movies as teenagers and starting that from scratch. But how do you remake Iron Man? How do you do
you don't have to
that?
remake the movie, but you can have an Avengers movie and have Iron Man in it. You don't
Okay.
need to,
Yeah.
you can have those characters around. They don't necessarily have to have their own movies again. But
Interesting. Yeah.
you can have them in the universe and have it all line up without, I think one of the problems with the post Endgame stuff is that there's always this question of, oh, where does this fall with the snap, and like how are these characters,
Mhm.
how old are they? There's this missing time from the snap. Some of them were there, some of them weren't. What happened during that time? And I think if you reset, you kind of wipe that out, and you kind of have a clean slate, and you can kind of have all these things line up again instead of worrying about where all these things fit on a timeline. It just might be a lot cleaner, a lot easier to understand. People don't have to do their homework before they watch a movie to try to figure out where it falls with everything else.
Yeah.
No.
And without erasing everything that you did before too.
Right. See, that's my question.
Which is what a reboot to me sounds like.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
none of this stuff matters. But if you do a reset, it's a slight change of words, but you can kind
Yeah.
of line everything up again and still say that stuff happened and it mattered. And you don't kind of give people the impression that they just wasted their time watching the stuff.
Ooh. Maybe this isn't remaking Hickman's Secret Wars. This is bringing back the time time slide storyline where Tony goes bad because of Kang, and
Teen
he
Tony?
dies, and they
Teen
bring
Tony.
us Teen Tony and
No,
Timothy.
no,
I'm
no,
calling
no.
it Timothy
Timothy
Chalamet. Teen Tony.
Okay.
I might actually see that. I would go see that.
Well, you know what? The MCU, they've made me like many stories that I disliked in the comics, like Civil War. I didn't care for it in the comics. I loved it in the movies. So if anybody can make something good out of that, I wouldn't put it past Kevin Feige. So
yeah, that's the thing, is that they do good remixes of of story ideas from the comics. I did like, how both movies felt like comics, and again, you're getting put in the middle of the story, like literally, right, like a very Star Wars New Hope opening for Superman. You just missed this big battle where he got beat, and that's where you're picking it up. As a comics retailer, I think that's great because so many people are so hung up on starting from the beginning, but that's not always going to be that way. You're always going to, you're usually going to start a comic in the middle of a run, right? If you're just picking them up off the floppies up off the rack or whatnot. So I really appreciated that. I appreciated the love and the reverence for everything that went into these movies. Both of these movies really love their source material. And it really showed. And it did also show that people seem to be having a good time making these movies, which for Fantastic Four, I find, again, because much like the Captain America with Wings movie, the Brave New World, that movie had like 5 credited writers, which means like 15 people had a hand in writing that. We saw stuff, that was shot, set photos that obviously weren't in the movie. So credit to the editors for making that make some sense. And I think it looked like the Fantastic Four had the same thing going on. You had about 5 credited screenwriters. And from what we know, there was about 20 minutes, stuff cut. Malkovich completely cut out, but one of his apes was still in there. Minor quibble. that montage that was all supposed to be news camera footage clearly was made up of scenes that were shot normally and cut, and then like, because whoever that cameraman on the, with the ape, catching all those great angles and making those cuts, that was great. But yeah, no, seriously, the editing, I think, on those movies really does a good job of making sense out of, I think, a very chaotic creative process. And I think that's what's been going on with Marvel. I think it's been a very chaotic creative process, just like what was going on with the DCEU under that previous regime. And that's why I think a guy like James Gunn was brought in to kind of rein all that in. So as somebody who loves movies and loves that these movies do, both movies, they have your heroes at the peak, something happens, public distrust sets in, and then they go, then they go from hero to zero, and then by the end they go from zero to hero again. And I love those arcs, and I love how both movies handled them. So I had a great time with both of those movies this summer. Saw them both a couple times. I'm gonna watch them some more times. AJ, successful, super fantastic summer. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Very good. Yeah. We see him again.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna. Not like you will, but I will. Man, I got to be honest. I like Superman a lot, more than I thought I was gonna.
Nice. Tom, super fantastic summer.
Yeah, thumbs up, man.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Fun for the whole family, right?
Yeah. Although my youngest liked Fantastic Four more.
I think that's going to play better with the younger set.
Yeah. She felt it was easier to understand.
Although
That was what she said.
Yeah. Well, Superman, again, it's like an old Silver Age, Bronze Age comic. Look, we're in the age of decompressed storyline where Brian Michael Bendis could take a 16-page origin of Spider-Man and stretch it out to 9 issues. So, so I kind of appreciated that there was a lot going on. And I'm also finding, though, some of the older comic fans aren't that happy with the goofiness of Superman. I find that interesting. I think that, again, that's people who really got into Superman because of Man of Steel and really pulled into that.
So they didn't appreciate the monkeys and typewriters.
I was so worried when I heard about that, when that news broke, and I was like, this is so James Gunn, what are you doing? But boy, it was what I was hoping would be, just a great throwaway bit, in a movie with a lot of great throwaway bits, and I think that's one thing, is that Superman, I think, is definitely held up more on the repeated viewings, because there's just a lot to look forward to that still hits you the same on multiple viewings, at least for now, as well as just little things like that you can kind of savor, as opposed to them zipping by so fast. So it's like rereading an old comic. John, we just got a couple minutes left, so I want to kind of leave it with you as far as if you thought it was super fantastic summer, and what you have cooking, and where people can reach you.
Well, I mean, yeah, thumbs up on both movies. Yeah, super fantastic summer. I enjoyed them both. I've already seen Superman twice. I may not see FF again in its theatrical run, but I'll check it out again when it hits streaming. So I thought they were both well done, and I think they set things up well for the future. Let's see, blatant plug for me. You can check out my podcast, the SNL Nerds, where my co-host Darren Patterson and we talk about Saturday Night Live every week. During the summer hiatus, which we're in now, we cover a different movie starring an SNL alum each week. We just did City Slickers, and this week we're doing Ed Wood with Bill Murray.
One of my favorites.
One of my favorites too. It's actually my birthday pick it's my birthday this weekend, so this is my birthday pick this time around. So I'm
gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, John, happy early birthday. I will send you the epic happy birthday song on Facebook when it's the actual day, if Facebook remembers to remind me.
Okay.
That's every year I pick a different thing to just send everybody for their birthdays.
We're
So.
we're about 2 hours away as we record this. So
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, again, thank you for spending your birthday eve with us. It was an honor to have
my
you.
pleasure.
It was our pleasure as well, and I hope maybe someday you'd like to come back on the Pep Talk, and we'll talk some other nerd stuff. I'd love to at some point do a Starman episode, so maybe if I can get you in on that.
Sounds great. Count me in.
Yeah, so maybe maybe if there is ever something down the pike besides that awful action figure that McFarlane is coming out with, it looks like we'll do something. Folks, thank you for joining us for the Pep Talk. This is our show for August, so we will be back in September with a whole new round of looniness and zaniness and zoominess, because we do this on Zoom and put it for you on YouTube. Look, if we could learn anything from this summer's movie output, it's that kindness matters and family is there for you. And I love this Pep Talk family. I love all of these guys that joined me here tonight. I love every guest who's ever been on the show and any guest who's ever willing to come on the show. I love everybody who's listening and watching, whether you're doing it while you're doing your housework or even those that have told me they actually listen in the shower. Gross, but hey, at least you're listening. I appreciate you. And Hercules, I appreciate you for giving me this forum. I look forward to our show with Paul tomorrow night. Again, folks, check out our interview with Rick Offenberger on this very YouTube channel. This has been the Pep Talk. You can find me at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Every day that they're open, I'm there waiting to slink comics. Thank you. Waiting to slink comics and give you a high five. John, come on by again. It's probably been a while.
Yeah, it has been.
But again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, John. Thank you, Hercules. Hercules, I'm going to take us out with a joyous journeys and excellent adventures, right?
That's what I usually say, but fine. You said it. Happy birthday, John, and thanks to everybody
Thank you.
for an entertaining and informative show. I wish you success in all your endeavors. Take good care, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.